Our next couple traded up the bustling city lights of Europe for thousands of solar panels on the family farm south of Auckland. About 18 months ago, Nigel and Merrin Upchurch added a solar farm to their operation at Waiuku, with young cattle and pigs grazing beneath. It's feeding time at Waitangi Farm near Waiuku, about an hour south of Auckland. 6 hungry piglets are ready for kai.
We normally feed the piglets, let them have something to eat, and then the mum can enjoy her meal in peace before we release them.
That's very fair.
Yeah, it's breakfast. Come on, mate.
How old are these wee ones?
These guys are about 5 weeks old now. 6 weeks old.
Getting quite big.
They're going to be weaned. They're being in the process of being weaned. They'll be going off to their new homes next weekend. So we just sell them off to other farmers and livestock blockers who are looking to raise them on for the freezer. Some of them, if they're lucky, will go on to be breeding animals. We've got registered purebred Berkshires, then the Devon orchard pigs or the large blacks, as they're known. Yeah.
Is there a reason you've chosen those 2 particular breeds as well? Or?
Well, there was a huge demand for the Berkshires because they got a good rep. They're known as the Wagyu of pork in Japan. They're really big as well. And they are beautiful meat, like nicely marbled. Yeah, delicious, quite frankly.
The pigs are just a small part of life on the 48-hectare farm for Nigel and Merrin Upchurch, who traded up city life for Merrin's family farm 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, we got started with pigs because Merrin's mum, Judy, had planted a lot of fruit and nut trees around the place, and we weren't really capitalising them on a commercial perspective, so it made a lot of sense to run pigs under the trees during the autumn months, and we just found it worked really well with the space, so they can hoover up all that excess windfall produce and make some pretty delicious pork, quite frankly.
We have chestnut trees, so they fatten up really nicely in autumn on the chestnuts. We don't have to feed them anything at that time of year, around February through to April.
They just find it themselves.
Yeah.
And
They forage.
Yep. Quite a few apple trees as well, so we make our own cider. But yeah, they're good to occasionally run the pigs under the apple trees. So we just find it's a good balance for the property. We keep the pigs a bit closer in, sort of central to the main operation, and then the beef a bit further out. Yeah.
And there's nothing better than your own pork. Once you taste pork that's fattened on chestnuts and free range like this, it's a completely different type of meat.
And I suppose, a lot of New Zealanders are used to imported pork because that's mostly what you can find at the supermarkets as well.
The domestic pork industry has taken a hammering because it's quite cheap to import pork, and some of it's not bred to the same standards in terms of animal welfare.
We've got a purebred Berkshire, Vincent. We've had him for about 5 years now, so it's just time to start thinking about succession plans. We're going to keep we've got 5 breeding sows, a mixture of the Devons and the Berkshires. We will keep a few of their daughters and roll Vinny over eventually, and he's going to be replaced by little Hugo here, who's a Wessex Saddleback Hampshire cross. So we're keeping with that heritage breeds, but mixing it up a little bit now this time. See how he goes for us. He's a sweetheart though. Likes a good belly scratch already, which is really nice.
We tend to go for dark pigs so they don't get sunburnt because we're an outdoor operation.
The pigs dine well, enjoying a mix of grass, fruit and nuts from trees on the farm, as well as food scraps from a thrice weekly run to the local supermarket. Helping with the feeding today are temporary farm workers, or woofers, Tommy and Tilly.
The more that we've spent time with them, the more they've got used to us, and I've grown a bit attached accidentally, especially to the little runt there. The
really little one at the back.
One. Yeah.
Trying to make sure he or she gets extra feed and things like that.
Yeah.
Give him all the bananas.
Have you guys been on farms before? Is this your kind of first experience up and close?
Yeah, sort of a big farm. I mean, I grew up on land, but we never had any animals or anything, so it is cool to actually experience.
What about for you, Tilly?
Yeah, I mean, I've grown up in a city, so for me coming here is just a massive breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
It's so nice to just spend time with the animals and then go out, and we've been planting native trees and stuff, and it's just such a rewarding job. Yeah, I'm definitely going to miss it. It's actually our last day today, so Gonna soak it all in.
It'll be cool to come back hopefully in a few years and see the little forest that we built and all that sort of thing.
A desire to be outside and working with animals was also part of the appeal for Nigel and Merrin in coming home.
So we were both living in Europe. We were living in Amsterdam for 7 years. Merrin was doing her master's and then her doctorate in freshwater ecology, and I was working as a designer and 3D animator, kind of in the ad industry. So yeah, a bit of a change moving home from Amsterdam to Waiuku pig farmer.
What about for you, Merrin? I suppose you get to kind of put in practice
I
what
married
you...
the farm girl.
Yeah, this farm was where I grew up, so it was real coming home for me. When we were living in Europe, in Amsterdam, I really missed the animals and being outside, and there were a lot of good benefits to being over there, but coming back was really great. And for me, the farm is a constant place for me it's a classroom for me to continuously learn. So I work with farmers and I have my own consultancy, and I like to try things here to see how it works in practice, and it gives you a much deeper appreciation for what sits behind actions around water quality enhancement and soil health, and actually having a functional farm that produces an income.
I can see all of the flax bushes and other native plantings around what I assume are kind of parts of the boundary or where some of those waterways are. They're
actually just for livestock health, so they're really good for shelter, and they're quite good for rumen development in young cattle. They're actually quite a good browsing plant for the cattle. We do plant flax not too close to the streams, because if it floods then it can rip them out. And not too close to fences either, especially electric fences.
Yeah, they get the zap.
But they're a great plant, just in the right place.
Not to malign the lovely pigs we have here in front of us, but people often associate pigs as quite a dirty animal. Obviously they turn up the root around in the mud and they get a little bit dusty and muddy sometimes. How do you manage that with wanting to look after the waterways and things like that on the farm?
This time of year is obviously the most challenging. When the ground is wet, they have a very strong instinct just to start digging away at it. So we have a lot of trees on the property, and it's not that infrequently that a branch comes down, or sometimes a whole tree comes down, or we need to do some clearing. So we have a constant supply of wood chip. We use the wood chip in the areas that the pigs are running up and down the fence line or where we feed them. It helps to reduce the amount of mud. It's nice and soft on their trotters, but it also helps to absorb some of the nitrogen. So that's quite a nice natural intervention that we can just put in place. And we try and rotate them as well through the paddocks so that they don't get too overdone.
It seems like quite a low input operation in the sense that there's a lot of that you can supply from on farm already, as you say, from the tree branches or the flax bushes, the purposes they serve, and the fruit that you grow and things like that. Was that quite intentional part of the operation?
Very much so. This farm was actually run as an organic property for about 15 years, I would say. It might even been a bit longer than that. And so the inputs that have been added to the property in terms of fertiliser have all been natural products. Since we've moved on, we've been focusing on just balancing soil minerals. We don't add any nitrogen, a bit of slow release phosphorus, and that's really it. But you can see with the amount of produce we're bringing into the pig areas, that's actually quite a bit of nutrient that's coming into these areas. So we soil test the areas that have pigs in them separate to the rest of the property. And soil quality and health is a really big part of the way that we're farming, so we can grow good grass and we're not losing nutrients into our waterways.
Do you rotate the pigs with the cattle that you run as well? Or?
We do run cattle in these areas too. It's good to reduce the amount of weeds that come up. If you don't graze areas properly, then you will get areas becoming more weedy, and we're still refining that, and we're constantly learning as we go.
And they'll eat down a lot of the tougher grass that the pigs don't eat as well. I think a lot of people don't realise how much grass that pigs will browse on as well, actually.
Maintaining a low environmental footprint while maximising the land they do have is a key reason the couple have also gone down the route of agrivoltaics. Agrivoltaics is the practice of simultaneously using land for solar energy production and agriculture, such as growing crops or grazing stock beneath the solar panels. Perhaps unusually in this example, about a dozen heifers, young cows that have not yet had their first calf, graze and rest beneath solar panels across 3 hectares of the farm. What mix are you running here?
So
Hereford cross?
Yeah, Hereford Friesian cross. We get most of our cattle from Jensen's up round near Warkworth, and they raise beautiful, really tame, calm animals. We do have a few other Spitzes in here. But yeah, majority of our herd is Friesian Hereford cross.
And you've chosen heifers, I presume, partly because of their nature, just that...
It just makes things easier. We do actually have 4 steers at the moment, but one of them's a rig, and so that kind of reminds us of the reason why it's a little bit easier to just keep the heifers. Obviously, we've had a bit of rain this morning, and they tend to shelter under here when it's been raining, but also on hot sunny days. And even right now, like, it's stopped raining, the sun's coming out, but they still choose to just camp underneath there. So it's worked really well for us. This summer and autumn was really dry, and we actually noticed the grass was greener under the panels as well, so we're getting less evaporation. That's something I quite like to measure, is the soil moisture between the areas that have panels and those that don't. These animals would be about the largest that we would put under the panels. They're getting close to 200 kg.
Yeah, so we've been running the farm now, well, the solar farm's been, about a year and a half now since it's been active?
Yep.
And we're still figuring out exactly, but yeah, we're running them, the R1s, through until they're about a year old, or about 200 kgs or something.
How tall are these solar panels, I suppose, given that and that you are running cattle? They're what, about 2?
Taller than most.
Taller than most, yeah.
So that was developed in conjunction with Lightyears, and aiming for them to be 1.6 metres off the ground at the pivot point there where the tilting panels. That said, some of them are much higher, but unfortunately in a few places they're also a bit lower just with the undulating ground. So as when we first get the young cattle on, about sort of 4 months old or something, 4 to 6 months old, you know, they're fine to run through the whole thing. And then as they get a bit bigger, we just start fencing some of them off, some of the panels off, that they're a bit more perhaps susceptible to damage or having wires chewed or anything like that.
Because how much of the farm is in solar panels, and how many solar panels do you have?
So we've got about 3 hectares under solar panels. You'd have to ask Matt how many solar panels there are.
Thousand.
I'm not sure about that.
So we've got 3 hectares of panels. They're divided up into 2 cells, which we've labelled sort of the eastern block and the western block. We're currently in the western block, and then we just subdivide those blocks with temporary fencing and roll them through. You just let the Lightyears know where they're at, and they just lock the panels flat.
Lots of lovely long lush grass in the moment.
It's been a little while since we ran cattle under here. We actually combined our mobs into one mob about 2 months ago.
Investing in such infrastructure can be costly. Nigel and Merrin have partnered with Lightyears Solar and leased their land to the company which built and manages the panels.
It's on a lease basis. We own the land and lease the land out to Lightyears, and they pay us a lease for the area. But we've got a very good arrangement with them in that it still feels like it's part of the farm that we can use, you know. So we have to be mindful about the type of stock we run under the panels, obviously. We're very cautious about anything that could cause any damage. Particularly, I think the main risk is really them getting into cables and chewing cables.
Leases are just CPI adjusted every year, and then there's also a profit share mechanism built in there as well, that if their revenue from the farm punches above a certain amount, then we...
With the power, is the farm operated as well? Like, are you guys able to draw from this, or it all goes back into the grid and their supply?
It goes back into the grid at the moment, but they have dropped off a small transformer so that they can provide us with power for the farm and for the house. So that's something that we've been working on together.
Need another few months and we'll hopefully have that all wired in.
Something that we're certainly keen on is reducing the carbon footprint of the property. I would actually like to get it not just neutral but carbon sink, and I think we're there with all the trees we've got already. So anything that we can do to reduce reliance on externalities, it's a bonus for us. You know, we harvest rainwater from our shed so we can use that for wash down. We've got amazing bore water around here, and you know that really needs to go for drinking water and not just being used for cleaning. So there's small things like that we're implementing. But it's a constant process of checking in and seeing what you can do next.
The Waiuku farm is the first of several set up and operated by Lightyears Solar. Even on a drizzly grey day, it's generating power. Co-founder and managing director Matt Shanks explains.
This was the first one we've built and operate. Yeah, we've had a couple of sites prior to this where we've done the development and design and consenting. The first one was up near Dargaville called the Nomai Solar Farm, which was on was about a 5 or 6 hectare support block, that we purchased off a farmer up there and developed that.
You've got one down in Waitangi, and is there one also in the South Island from memory?
Yeah, we have a site in just outside Masterton, the Waiuku Solar Farm, and another one in Ashburton on the south side there in Willoughby.
And can you tell me a little bit about the setup here on this farm in Waiuku, and how many solar panels and what their kind of output is?
Yeah, this is what's called a single axis tracking system, most of it, so it follows the sun across the course of the day. One of the reasons we did that is it works better with the livestock, because we can put the panels flat, which you can see right now, which gives a bit more headroom for the young, the calves. And Nigel actually did some experiments before we started with some bamboo poles he'd put out around the paddocks here. You remember that?
Yeah, to see how high we needed to jack them up, basically, to be able to run the cattle underneath.
Yeah, so we determined that the critical height for calves was 1.6 metres. That's their sort of lick up to. That's how far they go with their tongue. So everything in the solar array here is well, all the sensitive parts are higher than that. There's about I think it's 2,800 panels we've got here, and the output is about 2.4 megawatts or 2,400 kilowatts. So that's enough to powers about 700 homes in the Waiuku area.
And obviously today's a little bit of a grey, slightly wet day, so probably not the best day for a solar farm visit. But can you talk me through, even on a day like today, what they might be putting out?
Yeah, it's running right now. It's about 25%, and the sun's at its almost at its lowest angle in the sky. So normally this time of year we would get up to around 50-60% production over the middle of the day when the sun's at its highest, and then obviously, going into summer, that the days get longer and the sun gets higher.
What is the lifespan of a kind of solar farm like this, or of these panels? Like, how long would you expect them to be able to be in use for?
We expect 35 years, and without having to replace the panels. They're warranted for something like 25, 30 years, and they kind of age a little bit and decline in their production. So even at 35 years, they'll output about 85% of what they're doing today. So that's still pretty good. There's obviously maintenance regime that goes along with it to make sure they last that long. So we're learning more and more about that. There's more maintenance involved in a tracking system like this than in a fixed mount system that doesn't move.
Agrivoltaics is part of a growing trend. While solar power could make up 6% of Aotearoa's energy by 2035, suitable land is limited. Agrivoltaics allows for dual land use on farm.
I think Nigel and Merrin and Judy have really been pioneering and accommodating here. I think this is probably the first large agrivoltaic set up in New Zealand, and certainly learned a few things along the way. Anecdotally and from observation at this and some of our other solar farms, we kind of think that there's a slight uptick in pasture growth with the solar, and I don't know if that's sort of a greenhouse type effect or kind of shading underneath the panels in the hotter months, but
definitely noticeable over the drought period we had that this was the greenest grass on the farm, easily. Yeah, everything browned off big time, but it was still just noticeably better here under the panels.
For farmers, agrivoltaics can also help diversify and make their business more profitable. Most importantly for the Upchurches, it aligns with the couple's values.
It's limited what we can do with that 3 hectares. We obviously can't run our larger cattle through the area. And one other limitation we've really yet to address is how we actually spread fert in here. Now there's all of the panels on because we can't get a big truck in anymore, and of course it'll probably just end up coating the panels anyway, so we're going to need a bit of a hopper and do it in smaller loads on the back, which will be a bit more time consuming. Wonderful to still be able to run the young cattle through.
It's actually made the farm more profitable as well, so the whole voltaics has allowed us to have that dual land use.
Per hectare, this is now the most profitable part of the farm, combined with being able to run the cattle underneath it.
Yeah, and we did that analysis before we went too far down this avenue to see what we could earn off this area of land with cropping or dairy grazers or alternate land uses, and this was by far the most favourable. It aligns with our values as well, so it's something that we were really interested to explore.
That was Merrin and Nigel Upchurch I was speaking to at Waitangi Farm in Waiuku, near Auckland. You also heard from Matt Shanks of Lightyears Solar and woofers Tommy Falconer and Tilly Milson.